Hey, what's up, party people? You have Survivor Teek here. I'm here in Alcatraz, the penitentiary, federal penitentiary. It closed down in 1964. How can I show you? I'm currently in the recreation area. This is where they would perform their challenges. I know that there are a lot of villains who ended up here in Alcatraz. Russell Hantz, Brandon Hantz, and more recently Ricard from this recent season, because he played a very villainous role. I'm technically here on a tour, so I don't want to speak for too long, but what an episode. Shan was finally ousted. Major downfall. We saw the breakup of the Shan, Danny, Leanna, Shan alliance. Essentially what ended up happening was everybody turned on Leanna and Shan. It wasn't clear exactly who the agent was, whether it was Ricard, whether it was Erica, whether it was Deshawn, but surely all three of them played a role. As we know, Deshawn was already feeling a little bit odd with Shan for the past little bit, just in terms of that tug of war in the majority alliance. It's astounding. They were so close. You're in a final 8, you have 4 people. Shan has her idol as well. All you have to do is pick up one more and vote out literally any of the 4 other people, and then you can steamroll yourselves to the final 4. I think Deshawn and Danny were worried about sitting next to Shan at the end, fundamentally. They didn't want a chance with her in the final 4 and then to lose next to her. From Deshawn's perspective, it kind of makes sense to have a final 3 with Danny and Liana. That's one that he'll certainly win. But Liana is now totally burnt by that move. I don't know if Deshawn's plan to bring Heather as the 3rd with him instead of Liana, and try to bring in Eric and Heather in as their 4 moving forwards. Just an old Luvu alliance. That could very well be the case, where that's Deshawn's game move, because that's the most perplexing. From Erica's viewpoint, it makes sense. From Ricard's viewpoint, this is where it got a little bit messy. So how this all went down was the majority alliance, they had a plan to get rid of Ricard. Ricard won immunity. They didn't tell Shan, they told Leanna. Leanna ended up telling Shan because of the relationships they made on the summit. Shan then told Ricard. Ricard was flabbergasted. Ricard was like, why would you tell me this? This is insane. You should just get rid of me, because I also want to get rid of you as well. And it was really interesting, because Ricard bringing Shan on that reward may have played a role in Shan divulging this information. Ricard's a challenge VC on the reward and the immunity. So with that information that Ricard did have, he was then able to essentially rally the troops. He first went to Heather and Erica. They were totally on board because they're at the bottom. They didn't really show him talk to Xander, but I'm sure Xander was more than happy to jump on in this plan and not play his idol, which is a boss move once again. And so it ended up being where Erica was worried about Shan and Leanna's votes going against her if it was 6-2, so she ended up orchestrating a bit of a split between Shan and Leanna, just in case Shan didn't play the idol. Xander also has this extra vote, and he has his advantage. And so it's really interesting that they're not going after Xander. Those are 2 really powerful things going into the final 7, as well as somebody who was basically neck and neck with Ricard in those 2 challenges, and he could definitely win immunity again. So I think they're being silly and not getting rid of Xander. I think the decision to get rid of Shan was smart, because she was going to win against anybody. It's going to be interesting to see how Ricard is able to navigate. I think he has to continue to put the target on Deshawn and Danny. I think Ricard is going to have to probably go after, build a bond with Xander, Erica, and Heather, basically the people on the bottom, to get rid of the rest. Maybe it's rebuilding a bond with Liana to get rid of Danny and Deshawn. So we'll see how that goes with Ricard's game. That's going to be probably the most interesting one to see, how he's able to navigate. I don't know if anybody else other than Xander, Danny, and Xander, Deshawn, and Ricard have any win equity. For any of the others to win, I think they have to be in a final 3 without any of those 3 individuals in the final. So we'll see how that plays out, but I probably shouldn't talk for too long. People are staring at me. They think maybe one of the schizophrenic people who escaped from Alcatraz. It's actually super interesting over here to learn about Al Capone, to learn about Birdman, to learn about some of the other inmates, including those that were able to escape. No survivors have successfully escaped the island. I think it was in Survivor Gabon. What was it? I think it was GC ended up not going to a challenge and he was trying to escape, and I think in Survivor Guatemala, I think the one tribe, I think it was Danny's tribe, ended up going to the other beach. So there's little escapes, and I think in Micronesia, that's when Alexis, Eric, and James ended up escaping into production and stealing food, allegedly, but it's been more or less confirmed. So there's been some famous Survivor escapes, but nobody was able to escape Alcatraz alive before it closed. So super interesting. I'll have my part 2 analysis probably later today, but really interesting to see Shan leave. It really opens up the game for everybody. I think Xander could win out. Really, I think he could win out, and I think they'd have to vote for him in the final 3. I think Deshawn is hoping to bring goats with him at the end. Erica might have some small win equity if she's able to get rid of Deshawn, Xander, and Ricard back to back to back. It's going to be a tough goal to kind of thread the needle there, but I think Heather, Danny, and Liana have no win equity, and so if they're in the finals, whoever brings them with them will win. It'll be really interesting to see if Ricard, Xander, and Danny, 2 of the 3 of them, make it to the end to see who will win, but this could be a coronation for Ricard if he's able to continue to strategically maneuver. Danny's on his game. Danny had a lot of confessionals about targeting Ricard, but he ended up working with him. That's probably the most important tribal this season. So we'll see what happens. When it comes to Shan, she overplayed her hand. I think her bond with Liana really clouded her judgment. I think she really needed to stay more loyal to Ricard. I think she should have had a better hand in the minority alliances to understand exactly where they were going. Just to make sure people like Erica and Heather did have some residual support. That was like the Nasir that she had before, with somebody in the minority who she still had connections with. I don't know what happened with her bond with Xander. I think Liana might have messed that up. They didn't show that on the show, but they showed that in a secret scene. So I think she really lost the grips on the minority alliance, understand exactly whether her name would be said or not. Whereas the people in the middle, Erica, Deshawn, and Ricard, were able to really orchestrate that move. So kudos to them. We'll see which one of them can make it to the end game. And that is on Xander, actually, still. So chat soon.